First, happy birthday to our neighbors in the United States of America. Today, July the 4th, right? Americans today are celebrating the anniversary of the adoption of the Declaration of Independence on July 4, 1776. It was on that historic day 250 years ago. So as families gather across the nation today for reunions, concert picnics, and barbecues, we join our American friends in celebrating this special day. And I'm going to tell you, we thank God for the United States, for this great nation, and for the many blessings that has brought not only to its own people, but to the world. Amen. And as we reflect on an American's history, it is worth remembering that many of the nation's founding fathers had a profound respect for God and for the teaching of the Scriptures. Their Judeo-Christian convictions helped them to found the nation. Those biblical values, faith, justice, human dignity, and liberty under God became part of the moral foundation that contributed so greatly to America's strength and influence throughout, its history. George Washington, the first president of the United States, once said, "It is impossible to rightly govern the world without God and the Bible." Grant, Ulysses S. Grant, the 18th president, wrote, "Hold fast to the Bible as the anchor of your liberties. Write its precepts in your heart and practice them in your lives." More recently, Ronald Reagan, the 40th president, declared, "Within the covers of one single book, the Bible, are all the answers to all the problems that face us today. If only we would read and believe." If only. If only. It is my prayer that America will continue to honor God and uphold the timeless truth found in His Word. At a time when many forces are challenging the very foundation, of this nation, may God continue to bless the United States and use it as a blessing to the nations of the world. As we read in Psalm 33:12, "Blessed is the nation whose God is the Lord." Amen. Now, turning to the nation of Israel, there is one major problem that is often overlooked, yet it may be just as dangerous as the enemies that surround the nation from without. It is not an external threat, but an eternal one, a division from within that many believe poses an even greater danger for Israel's future. There is a well-known rabbinic teaching that explains the destruction of the Second Temple in 70 AD as having been the cause not only by Rome, but also by internal divisions, by hatred and infighting among the Jewish people. The Talmud refers to this as the sinat chinam, the baseless hatred, or hatred towards one's fellow man. Whether it is a nation or a congregation or a family, when such hatred is allowed to grow unchecked, it often becomes a sign of impending destruction. Many Israelis believe that this is precisely what is happening in their country today. A recent poll published by the Jerusalem Post last June 15 revealed striking results. It found that 55% of Israelis considered internal divisions to be the greatest threat to the continued existence of the state of Israel. By comparison, only 23% cited the conflict with Iran. Only 18% cited the conflict with the Palestinians. Then what is this internal conflict? Where does it come from? Many point to the widening chasm between large segment of its Israeli society and the ultra-Orthodox religious establishment, and the growing tension between the Haredi community and many other sectors of Israeli society. This division has become one of the most significant and contentious issues facing the nation today. This has brought Naftali Bennett, one of the leading contenders for prime minister in Israel's upcoming election, to say that just a few days ago, on June the 23rd, that he is outlining a plan to build Israel from scratch. His plan he named the New Covenant. a foundational, he says, plan to repair the state. He went as far as saying, we will dismantle the ultra-Orthodox state within the state and build one Jewish, democratic, prosperous, and strong state. That's a very strong statement. And this division has become blazingly obvious. For example, only a few days ago, the prominent ultra-Orthodox Rabbi Ariel Yazdi, publicly denounced the chief of staff of the Israeli army, declaring, and I quote, "The accursed IDF chief of staff, may his name and memory be erased." He actually cursed them. His words provoked widespread outrage and drew sharp criticism from many across Israel. The reason for this controversy is that since the rebirth of the State of Israel in 1948, the Haredi, that is the ultra-Orthodox Jews, have traditionally been exempt from military service. Many within the Haredi community believe that their full-time study of their sacred books and their prayers provide spiritual protection for the nation, but the people don't believe that anymore. The Israelis don't believe them. However, as Israel faces growing security challenges and an increasing need for soldiers, the government and the army have begun drafting some Haredi men into military service. And while this move is supported by 80% of the people of Israel, it has sparked a storm of protest among many ultra-Orthodox leaders. This rabbi, Yazdi, along with others, have joined demonstrations across the country reflecting the deep division that continues to exist within Israeli society. Now, consider this for a moment. When you look at Israel today, there's a striking resemblance to the Israel of the first century. Once again, a relatively small but influential religious establishment exercises enormous influence over the nation's direction. The names have changed from the Pharisees and the Sadducees to today's religious leadership, but the dynamic is remarkably similar. This should not surprise us. In fact, it is exactly the kind of setting the scriptures prepare us to expect in the last days. When Yeshua spoke of the rebirth of Israel through the parable of the fig tree, a prophecy many understand as pointing to the restoration of the nation before his return, he immediately added these remarkable words. Truly, he says, I say to you, this generation will not pass away until all these things take place. Matthew 24:34. What did he mean by this generation? The Greek word genia is broader than simply people born during the same period of time. Throughout the Gospels, it often describes not merely an age group, but a people marked by a particular moral and spiritual character. Notice how often Jesus spoke about an evil and adulterous generation, or an adulterous and sinful generation. He was describing far more than a calendar date. He was describing a spiritual condition. It is therefore possible that when speaking of the last days, Yeshua was saying that the same kind of religious spirit that opposes him in the first century would be present when he returns. If that is so, then what we see in Israel today is another reminder that God's prophetic program is unfolding exactly as he said it would. And so when we look at Israel today, that resemblance is striking. Once again, a relatively small but influential religious minority exercises tremendous influence over the nation. As a result, Israel stands today as an extraordinarily fragile position. From without, she is surrounded by enemies who openly seek to destroy her. From within, she wrestles with deep political, social, and religious division that threaten her unity. Such fragility compels us to ask, how does such a small nation continue to survive? The answer can only be found in God's faithfulness. It is He who has preserved Israel throughout history. It is He who continues to watch over His people. And this is why the Scriptures calls upon all Christians to pray for the peace of Jerusalem. Psalm 122:6. Therefore, let us continue to pray for the peace of Jerusalem, to love the people of Israel, and above all, to place our confidence not in political leaders, but in the Lord, the keeper of Israel. Amen.